comes trouble.
Can you be nice for once?
You just watch her.
I'm watching.
That's not what I'm talking about. If she does it again, don't come crying to me. I look like a fool to you, and then some. You just remember, a stiff dick ain't got no conscience.
Hey, Hap.
Hey.
Leonard.
Fruity. Check up on you later. Remember what I said.
You mad about something?
He doesn't like you.
I forgot.
No, you didn't.
Been a while, huh? I wanted to look good.
You do.
Jazzercise. I got myself a video and I do what it says. Us older ladies have to work at it.
Well, it's working. So you want something?
Got any coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Should we go up to the house?
Guys, thanks so much for coming in. Congratulations on this show, which I was praising in the green room. It's one of the most original things I've seen on television in a really long time. Thank you for making it. How did it get started? I want to know how this got started. I know you guys had adapted Cold in July, a book that Joe had written. But how did you get this off the ground at Sundance? What was your pitch for this genre?
Well, we had done Cold in July, so obviously we were familiar with Joe's work, and this series just lent itself to, we're thinking about television, saying, okay, nobody wants to give us money to make movies anymore, so, so we'll think about television. And basically, Jim and I had read all the Hap and Leonard novels and just loved them, so Nick Shoemaker was involved, really good guy, and he kind of had a concept that it could be done, so basically he got us all together, and we said, all right, let's try it. And we pitched it, and here we are.
And
there was also the fact that Lowell Northrup, who's not here, I got to give him a shout out because he was the first one that brought this thing together. He came to me and said, let's make a series out of this, and then he went out and shopped it. And, and these guys were already geared to do it. They were already talking about it, so everything just kind of came together serendipitously.
Jim, what made you geared to do this series? What is it about Joe's writing that you love so much?
I fell in love with Joe's stuff after Bubba Hotep when that movie came out. I remember thinking, when I found out that was based on a novella, I was like, whoever came up with this idea, I want to read everything that they've ever done. So I started reading the Hap and Leonard books then. That was like 2003 maybe. And then along the way, discovered Cold in July and fell in love with that. But I love how he's able to take so many genres that I love, pulp, horror, Western, sci-fi, noir, and then sort of put them in this blender that's like in his head and spits it out, and it makes sense when it shouldn't make sense, but it's got its own sort of twisted lens on it. So I love it. Nobody does it better than him, so it felt like a great opportunity to do something that doesn't really fit in a box.
Well, some would say that's what you guys do as filmmakers with this and with Cold in July and with We Are What We Are. You're very good at taking several genres or known tropes and making something very original and blended with them. Hap and Leonard, I got to ask you guys, how did you get involved with the show and what interested you in doing it, in playing kind of criminals but kind of not criminals, sort of can't help but become criminals because they're kind of clueless at times?
It started for me. I got the phone call from Jim. I had read the scripts, and it was love at first read. And we met at the production office in Soho, right? Chelsea.
Yep.
And I just, where do I sign? Basically, I'm a sucker for good writing, so.
You are a sucker for good writing.
It's all about the writing. If it's not on the page, it is not going to be on the screens.
Absolutely. I mean, your list of movies and shows that you've been in since The Wire has been pretty incredible. And with Omar, I mean, that is the most iconic criminal ever committed to TV, film, or page of any kind.
Shout out to David Simon.
I would imagine that after playing that, you have a bit of a hesitation when you are offered any kind of criminal stuff.
No. Really? I have rent to pay. I have no hesitation. I will shoot a McDonald's commercial if the check is good.
The writing's good.
I have things to do. Papa needs some shoes and shit. You know what I mean? I've been blessed. I know it looks like, I'm picking these characters. These characters are picking me. I'm a working actor, and the goal is, as a black man in Hollywood, the goal is to stay working. And I've been very blessed and fortunate to have such beautiful characters come to me. It's all God.
Absolutely.
He's also really funny, and that's what I think is fun about this show, is that it opens up this whole side of like just how funny he is, as you can see. But like on screen, it's great to see like he's a natural comedian.
Yeah, just sometimes with just a look too.
Yeah.
And James, what about you? How did you get involved with playing Hap? What interested
He
you?
loves me. He just scared to me, but he loves me.
I just got involved because of this damn fool.
I told you he loves me.
I'm an Englishman from the West Country in England, so playing
You
a
found
guy
out Michael K.
from-
Williams was involved, and you're like, I'm in.
Well, we had worked together on a show a while back for NBC called The Philanthropist, and we felt like we had lots of unfinished business in terms of screen time together and forging a relationship together on a screen. I'd done this funny little show called The Following, and I had been...
Funny little show called The Phone, where you murdered several people.
And I was doing this show, and I was packing up to go home, back to England after we got cancelled. And he called me, and he said, I've got this show called Hap and Leonard. Would you read it? Because I'm Leonard, and I'd love you to have a look at Hap. So really, it came from him. It was nothing to do with these guys. At all. And well,
So you saw that your friendship with him, or the working relationship that you had already developed with him, would make for a good sort of Hap and Leonard?
I am almost positive there is not another white man on this planet Earth that could have, for me to play Leonard, that could have been Hap. James, it was it. Couldn't have been nobody. We were meant to play these roles, and it was so funny because we had seen each other. Charlie Cohen, the producer of The Philanthropist, every year he and his wife throw each other a birthday party and try to outdo each other. You got the likes of Sting running around this motherfucker and shit like that. So I mean, it's full on. So it was her turn, his wife's turn to throw him a birthday party. It was February, right? Mm-hmm. And we were at the bar party, and that's when I found out that Farling was over, and he and his wife were heading back to London. And we get a little sentimental here, but the last thing he said to me, it was a Friday night before he knew he was going to be Leonard. He says, Mike, take care of yourself. I don't like most people. I love you, And with my face in his hands like this, I'm like, and then that Saturday I flew to LA and found out that the actor who originally was supposed to be Hap dropped out. And then my friend Goldie, she goes, Mike, what about your friend James? And it was so like, I couldn't understand. I said, James who? She smacked shit out of me. She said, stupid, your friend James. And then I remember the conversation we had just had the night before, that he was he was out of a gig, basically, and on his way back home to London. And I called him and said, please, I need you. And he came.
Wow. So I gather you guys have a pretty good time on set. It sounds like a friendly environment altogether.
It was actually quite stressful, but don't tell him.
The friendship got a little torn apart on the set?
No, never that. We had a ball, but it was intense. We were in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, like the hazard sheet of things you have to be aware of. Every
that
spider.
hazard sheet, it was just extraordinary, wasn't it? I remember arriving on set. There's a pink, maybe 10 pages of just shit you got to watch out for, and you go through it. The worst thing that comes across for me in England is a ladybug. Whoa. No, but here, it's fucking snakes, it's brown recluse spiders. It's
Poison oak. How many copperheads did they find? Copperhead
poison
snakes?
oak.
Wild alligators roaming.
Gators.
Hurricanes.
Men
We weathered a
on
hurricane
set
the first
with
day.
guns to kill gators. Should they take a little interest in you? A little snip, little nip. During the scene. And our very first day, we had a tornado. Like, the sky went green at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Hail. It was intense. All the power went out.
Hail the size of tennis balls.
Yes. In the summer.
And we just went,
in the first scene that we shot.
And I guess it's a good thing that you guys were friends, because you made it through this. It might have been a little bit easier to make it through this.
We're good friends, and of course that works, and of course that makes for us, it makes the show, and it makes what makes the show pleasurable to shoot, and the fact that we kind of finish each other's sentences, and we're cool with each other,
Well, the show's pleasurable to watch. It has that vibe, and a lot of that comes from talent. But there are some things that you can watch where it looks like people were having fun while they were making it. And the show has that vibe right from the opening scenes and the car chase with Creedence playing. That's when I knew I was going to like the show immediately. I was like, oh, this is a well-directed car chase with Creedence playing. I'm down. Let's go. Jimmy, I have to ask you, Michael has one of the most iconic criminals in his au revoir. You have one of the most iconic creeps, maybe, with It's Always Sunny. You are a McPoyle.
I was that. Yeah. I play a lot of creeps.
You play a lot of creeps. You have a House of Cards creep as well.
Yeah, there's one there.
And now you have a creep in this.
There's
as
one
well.
on Sundance.
Yeah.
It's good.
How do you audition for this?
I was doing a little play, a Nick Jones play in L.A. when this audition came through, and so I was working really hard for this play, so I just had all of this discipline coursing through my veins in this part. Normally, people cast me to connect some dots and stuff, and this is a much larger role for me, and there was so much to do, and so I just kind of threw my back into it, and I got to meet Jim and all these guys, and I just loved them right away, and I needed to get a shot at this guy. And I was just so lucky that
I remember clapping after your audition. I remember
it was
being
the
like,
only applause
he did his
got
first
after
one, and I started clapping. I'm like, oh wait, I'm the director. He's auditioning. I should play my cards. Cool. Yeah, I should play it cool.
Yeah.
I have to say though that he does one of the most awe-inspiring bad guys I have ever seen in my life, and I've played a lot of bad guys, so I kind of know the territory. But this one, unbelievable, folks.
It's quotable.
Watch it for
instantly.
him alone.
Stop it now. Stop it.
Your first scene in the first episode is like, I watched it twice this morning, and it's quotable in my head. The things that you're doing when you're pointing at the cop, I'm not going to give anything away outside of that, but it's very funny, and it's a perfect orchestration of a villain.
And there's Polly, his companion, who is also very creepy in that stuff.
Polly McIntosh, right?
Yeah.
Creepy, sexy, just sort of like.
Got it all going one time,
Can we talk about her outfits without giving anything away? How were those originally from the book, or? Oh, that is true.
That was our costume designer, Liz Vastola, who is incredible, and then Linda Moran, our producer. The two of them, I think we're able to sort of try to top each other with like 80s styles and fashion. And then what was great was Polly just came in, and we were kind of like, is she going to be cool wearing this? Then she came in and was like, crazy, or get bigger, get crazy. So it was just.
How did you describe her initially in the books, and what did you think?
She was described as a large, strong, attractive woman, but kind of scary, and I thought that's what Polly did. But what they did is in the novel, there's this transition from that 60s idealism to this 80s change. And that's kind of explained in the novel. You see thing. But what they did is that by giving her that hairdo and giving her that look and giving Jimmy the look he had, or them acquiring that look, they were able to make that transition. And it worked really well. And James here, too, even though he's, just ladybug problems, he is also a country boy just like me. I mean, we're hog castrators from way back. So... That's right. He was a champ.
He does actually mean that. I mean, I grew up in a very rural community in the west of England, and one of my jobs was piglet castration.
That's
really
essential for any
growing boy in the west of England. That's what you do. If you're growing up there,
in East Texas.
Yeah, that's one of the jobs.
Walk me through the pig castration, please.
I really don't want to know the details, my friend.
No.
Honestly.
Rubber bands?
It's quick.
It's quick, but it does make your eyes water.
Michael says you can't unthink it after hearing it the first time.
It was a funny thing that James was saying about the weather. When I got there, there was a guy, I think it was a guy working on sound. He said, I've read your books, but the weather couldn't be that shitty in here. I said, just wait a minute. And we were in Louisiana, but it's just like a line in the dirt from East Texas. It looks the same. It's very much the same. And it came the sky turned green, came a tornado. We had a hailstorm, but then the sun came out. And then it rained again at night. It was just that kind of weather, and I write that in my books all the time. I said, that's the way the weather is. And then it'll just be hot as the blazes. And mosquitoes, there's mosquitoes out there that can straddle a turkey flat-footed. They're big.
Can I just say real quick?
Yes, please.
Just in response, I'm glad you liked that scene at the end of the first episode, and just Jim Mickle. Like, that was the first thing we shot. This guy coming from independent film, then doing independent television, you can't get any performance without a great director on film.
Absolutely.
And thank God for Jim Mickle. He came in, I thought he just destroyed it on this show.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks, man. Thank
And what a script writer. I mean, the guy adapted my work so I made me look good, you know. I was all excited.
And I'm wondering about that, Nick. Like, so many of the great lines in the show sound very similar to how Joe was just talking when he said mosquitoes that could straddle a turkey. Like, I feel like there are lines like that in the show.
A lot of them are actually in the books, but
That's what I mean. Like,
we get confused, Jim and I, because we have to, when we get a line we really like, we go, is that ours or Joe's? And we've kind of lost track
I went
at
back
this
to
point.
the book to look. Hey, that's mine. Oh, that's Nick's. You know, I did that kind of thing. But it's fun because when you start not being able to tell exactly, it means that you've gotten that blend. Yeah. You've gotten it. You know.
Well, absolutely. It seems like just talking to you guys on the stage, everybody's working together in a somewhat harmonious fashion on a show like this. I've done big interviews for shows, for movies before, and you can kind of tell everybody's sort of in their own world and went and did their job, where this feels like everybody's having fun and collaborating. Yeah. And you talked about the characters in this, the difference between Hap's sort of 60s idealism and Jimmy and Paulie's sort of 80s individualism and hard-edged individualism. One of the things that I really love about the show, and I'm sure it's a great part of the books, is how you approach noir like the best noir writers, which is the characters and the crimes are sort of events that take place specifically within the time that you're writing, that point a lens to a little bit, I mean, not in a pretentious way at all, but point a lens to things that are happening at that time.
It's very character driven, and it's also atmospheric driven because, like I said, you're in East Texas or West Louisiana. You got a lot of weather, and you got a lot of a feeling of heat and a change, and people are different. But what was really good is that when Michael played his part, what I felt was that here was a guy who's seen some of the stuff that I've seen or knows about some of the stuff I know. And when James played his part, I said, you know, except for that weird accent that he has, he could be from where I'm from. Because, I mean, I really thought, that when I met James in a minute, I knew that this guy was a country boy. You know, there is a funny thing. I mean, he's sophisticated now. I didn't make that leap. But he did.
But the characters and the atmosphere come from the 88, from 68, and you are referential to that. Whereas I feel like most television that is noir or pulp, you could characterize it that way, would leave out all of those elements and
I wrote it at that era, though, so it wasn't like I was that damn smart. I was writing it in 1989, so that's what it was then. And Jim and them with Cold in July did that, too. They went back because there were no cell phones. And if you change the cell phones, you just change the whole tone of it. That can happen gradually in the series, but if you did that, it wasn't the original feel that I think the novels had, and I appreciate that very much. And you know,
I thought that was cool looking back, you know, through the lens of whatever, 25 years since you wrote that, and looking at these two characters that are, you know, pretty under the poverty line, and knowing that was really like the beginning of economic inequality, all the Bernie Sanders stuff, rightly so, talking about now is like the beginning of a lot of that stuff. So it felt also like an interesting time to sort of focus on that.
Plus, I got to drive an electric blue Camaro, so that was essential.
That was cool.
You have that, I mean, the fact that you have Tears for Fears and like after Credence in the pilot, I was so happy. It was just like, we go from this to that. It's so smart.
We blew our whole music budget before the,
I was wondering
the teaser of the first episode.
I think also there's another thing, isn't there, which is that if you have a world without cell phones and computers, it's just so much better for film.
Oh my God.
More interesting.
It's just so much more. There's nothing duller than watching somebody watch a computer screen. Yeah. So if that's part of your storytelling, you're just sort of fucked.
I can't imagine trying to write a narrative where people have cell phones because everything is solved quite quickly. Everything, like, there's a problem. Oh, hold on. Done. It's not a problem anymore.
No, one advantage, though, is that where we were, the cell phone didn't always work, or mine didn't anyway. So I thought, hell, I'm going to make any difference. Might as well be 1989.
Well, then you've got a horror movie where people are looking for service before they get cut up at the end of the movie.
Yeah. It's become a writer's dilemma, the cell phone thing, because you just constantly, okay, how do we get rid of the fucking cell phones? You know, it's the first thing you think of is we can't have all these people. They wouldn't do that because they got a cell phone. They call somebody. So your drama just disappears. Nobody's alone anymore. Nobody's isolated. And,
they also look like shit on screen. Like, cell phones just do not look that interesting, and someone using one, like you said, a cell phone or computer, does not look interesting on screen.
Well, they had to find a phone booth in the series. You know, that's really cool. I like seeing that because that's what I used to have to do. Have to hunt a phone booth down, you know.
Do you guys, I mean, you're talking about how great some of his lines are, or all of his lines, and you're adding your lines. Is it hard to adapt someone whose work you love so much to sort of take away? And I mean, I imagine with a TV show, it's a little bit easier because you can add a lot more and bring more of the story rather than Cold in July, where you're probably removing a lot of elements to tell a shorter story.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in Cold in July, I mean, which I just love the book so much, and there's just so much in there. And there's this great cemetery scene, and it's in the movie, we have it, but I made it 2 characters, but in the book, it's a very big scene. And, you know, Jim Bob has this great fight, and it's just one of the greatest fights I've ever seen written in a book. And it just wanted to keep it so bad, and just time-wise and structure-wise, it was like, we gotta move the story here. And, you know, it was one of the hardest things we did was to pull that, you know, tone that whole scene down. So it's a dilemma.
Joe, I'm curious about Leonard. You know, Leonard is a gay black man living in the South in the mid-'80s. What made you interested in writing about that and bringing a character like that into a sort of...
I've done martial arts all my life, and some of my sparring companions were really tough, black, gay martial artists. But they weren't open about it like Leonard is. But there was one who was. And so it was based on a variety of different people, and one in particular. But I just felt like, you know, why is the gay guy always the goofy neighbor next door? I mean, you can be the goofy neighbor next door if you're homosexual or heterosexual, but you know what? That doesn't define everybody, and it just pissed me off. And in 1989, especially in Texas at that time, and maybe a little bit now too, I just felt like that this is not represented, and I felt, you know, I'm a little bit different. I'm liberal. I'm an atheist. You know, I've got all those other things going that are a little bit different, and used to people just wouldn't even mention the word gay. That wasn't used. They used other terms. And so I was just pissed off, I guess. And so the character seeped into that story because those were the things that bothered me. All of my work's sort of like that. I'm writing to entertain, I'm mixing stuff, but stuff that pisses me off, social issues, political issues, the death of the idealism of the 60s, which, God, he nailed that character, you know. All of that was important to me, and it goes into the work. And as far as the adaptations, I always say, you know what? As co-executive producer, I get to say whatever I want, and then they get to do whatever they want. So it really doesn't matter. But the thing is they did. I mean, sometimes I would say something like, Jim, I don't like that, and he would, okay. And then another time I'd say that, and he would go, yeah, I can't do it. And then same way with Nick, and because there was things in the script, I might say, you know, I think the dialogue where these characters are doing this, people read it for the dialogue. You don't want to lose that. And then sometimes, though, that dialogue, had he used all of it, would have been excessive. But, you know, I think it was a balance back and forth. But always keep in mind that I get to say what I want and they get to do what they want.
And Michael, I would say with Leonard, I mean, I don't think you get enough credit, or maybe you do, for just incredible representations of the LGBTQ community in your work, from Omar to Leonard, even just 999 I watched the other night, and you appear in 999 as a transgender sex worker.
I respect women, them motherfucking heels. Woo! I said, no, baby, give me the mule. Give me the wedge. I put them heels on. I was like, shit, I can't walk in these motherfuckers. I don't know how women, I got so much respect for women, man. They make that shit look easy. Shout out to the sisters in the room. But actually, what I found really interesting about Leonard was the fact that I got a chance to speak to the black man who comes home from war. We don't see that. Every war movie that talks to post-traumatic stress is usually told from the white man's perspective. And in my memory, the only movie I know that really spoke to that was a film that let me know I wanted to become a thespian. It was, right, that movie.
About a Vietnam vet coming home?
Yeah, it was called when they started robbing the banks because they didn't have money.
Dead President?
Dead Presidents.
Oh, Dead Presidents, yeah.
Dead Presidents, from my knowledge, was the only movie that dealt with the black American plight coming home from war, post-stress, no jobs. You know, Leonard he was angry, but he had a lot of reasons to be angry. He fought for his country. He defended his country. He came home. He's, you know, picking roses for a job that gets taken away from him because the Mexicans were undercutting the pay. and then his uncle was eating cat food. I mean, come on, you know. So I had a lot of fun exploring that and dealing with that issue.
Another thing you did well too, and the guy who played Chester, I'm sorry I can't remember that actor's name.
Uncle Chester will do just fine.
Okay.
Henry Sanders.
I love the way that you had that interaction where you really respected this man and you wanted him to respect you and love you. There's that one scene in the truck. It brought tears to my eyes, you know. And there was a scene that maybe it was for me because I love the characters so much, where you were in the boat and Hap was in the water.
You told me that one.
Man, that tore me up because you were looking. All of a sudden, it's like, where is my best friend in the world? Because if this guy's gone, I'm really screwed, you know, because this is my guy.
I think we have some time for questions from the audience. Does anyone in the audience have any questions?
Hey guys, thank you all for being here. Very excited to watch this show. So for you, Michael, my question is, you've kind of played these characters before, kind of like cowboy, outlaws, Wild West scenarios. So is this just like a natural progression from you, only going off of the trailer where you've got the cowboy hat on? Maybe you could compare these roles, different similarities, and also for you, Joe, how similar is it to the Bucks, the TV series?
Have you played a cowboy before?
No, I have not. But you know, I know what you're saying. There's a certain thread that's familiar with all the characters. You know, there's a sense of moral sometimes. Moral could be what they have in common. Fearlessness, to live out loud. You know, there are a multitude of things that sometimes I see in different characters. But at the end of the day, in my mind, all my characters are individuals. You know.
And as far as the books, I actually think it's very close to the book. I think it's, I say the book, it's Savage Season, which is the first in the series. And I'm, of course, hoping we're going to continue down the line. But I was so pleased with what they did, you know, and how these guys presented it. So I've got no complaints there. Yeah, I mean, and how many writers do you hear say that? And I've had that happen to me on Bubba Hotep, Incident on Off a Mountain Road, Cold in July, and this series and some other things that I've written. So I'm waiting for that big, nasty, ugly shoe to drop when my next adaptation comes. Next season, I won't be up here. It'll just be these guys.
I'll say this, from watching the show as well and realizing that Cold in July was written by you as well, like, after I was watching the show, I was looking up and I was like, oh, I want to go read some of his books now. And that rarely happens from watching something. Am I like, oh, I'm watching the adaptation, now I'm going to go back and read the book. But because this is a series and it's pulp and it's noir and it's stuff, I wanted to go read it. You know, I'm a huge fan of that genre, and I had no idea about.
I'll be giving you a
books.
quiz in about a week.
Yeah, I'm a slow reader. Give me a little more time on that. Next question.
Hello, everybody. So my question is for Joe. Since you are a fantastic author and are really good with words, if you had to describe this TV series in 3 words, what would that be?
East Texas. East Texas. That's not 3 words. Let's just say East Texas hot. Because not only is it actually hot, the series is hot. I don't know that I could do that, because if you got me going, I might give you way too many words. To define it like that just seems to me to not dignify what they've accomplished. You know, I really feel pleased, and the actors, they couldn't have been better. One of the weird things is my son was on the set I think one day, and he came up, and James came around the side of the house, and he said, I just got this weird deja vu. He says, he's British? I said, yeah. He says, he walks like a country boy. He walks like you do. And I said, yeah. He said, and dress like you do. When I was a little kid, you guys even look a little alike, you know. Of course, he's the handsome version. I'm the ugly cousin. But nonetheless, I knew what he meant. He carried that air that was right and was correct. And when I saw him and Michael exchange words, I felt like, man, that's taking the soul out of the book, and they're putting it in the camera. And that's an amazing moment. And this guy, when he played Soldier, you know, I wrote Soldier. I had great fun writing Soldier, and he creeped me out, you know. And he's really a nice guy most of the time.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? My name's Dewan. First of all, I want to congratulate everybody on what appears to be an electrifying show that's going to come out.
It's fantastic.
Dewan from Chase?
You got it. What's up, my man? How you been? You all right? What's up, family? How you been?
I got the email. All right.
So, Ashley, this question is for Mike.
So, just by watching a short clip, I see how like effortless it was for you just to, have a character with no inhibition, with that edge. What were some of the challenges though when you were trying to find this role for Leonard?
I don't know if I feel that I was so tailor-made to portray Leonard. I put those clothes on and I started walking funny, dude. It happened. And then the cherry on the cake for me, what made the transition from Michael to Leonard so smooth and easy was this crazy motherfucker next to me. He brought it out of me, So
Hey, I got to say something about
we didn't have to
James,
work at the dynamic of the friendship. It was already there with us, and that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, and the other thing I was just going to say, but I'll let you. I'm just going to run over you. To hell with you.
Go on.
He's the star. I'm the writer. The writer's never getting it. But no, this is for James. Is that both of these characters, and I don't say this just because I wrote it, but that's a good reason to say it, is that these characters are more multi-layered than they appear. They look, oh, that's simple. But these guys really had to work because these guys have certain contradictions that yet are balanced out. And when I was watching them, I thought, damn, that is so subtle. What a magnificent cast. I mean, everybody was great, but of course these guys are the main guys, and the way they handled that and the way they took those layers and made them seem like that's part of these guys naturally. I was impressed.
I think that speaks personally to me. What I really like about the show is that in the 3 episodes that I saw, it's revealing layers of the characters rather than adding plot points over and over and over again for the purpose of having twists and turns like all television shows. We learn more about James's character. We learn more about Michael's character, about Christina Hendricks' character, who we haven't even talked about yet. She's fantastic in it. And James, I can see you want to talk.
No, I was just going to say, I remember we were in rehearsal one day, or we were rehearsing really early on, and he hadn't been terribly happy for a couple of days, and then one day we were in rehearsal, and there was just this great moment where he went, "Yep, that's it. Leonard's just dropped." And it was like, he had this moment in rehearsal where you just went, doo, doo. And he just found it, crystallized in that moment. It's a great thing that happens with actors sometimes, where they're struggling and it's like an ill-fitting suit, and then somebody lets out a collar and a jacket, and ooh, poof,
How did you find Hap?
Just around a corner, by the cigarette shop at the back of the store. I think one of the things, before I go on to that, one of the things I really love about the show and what I love about Joe's writing is the simplicity of this friendship. And we all of us have friends that are just simple friends. And they're people that you don't question and you don't judge and you protect and you look after and you're careful about their interests. And that's one of the lovely things for me about this show was reading it. He never underlined it. He never shone a light on it. He never overdid it. You'll all recognize it. You'll all recognize it. And I guess especially the guys, you just recognize that these are friends who you don't have to comment on it. You're just there for your buddy. End of. And I love that.
Also, not that it was part of that question, but there's 6 guys up here, but Pollyanna McIntosh and, as you said, Christina Hendricks, who haven't spoken about, are both amazing in very different ways. And Christina, I feel like that role, that was, I feel like, the hardest one to translate because of the contradictions. There are so many contradictions, and there's also the femme fatale thing, but there's there's so many layers underneath that, and it was really hard to be able to figure out all that stuff on the page, and then she just came in and effortlessly caught it. She's really amazing.
We're so used to watching TV here, where what you see is what you get. The characters are pretty obvious. The things that you see on TV often are very obvious, unless there's the more complicated, more interesting textual things. This show, what you see is not what you get. They reveal themselves over the 6 episodes, and when you're all hating on somebody, like the Christina character, you might be hating on her for a bit. She'll reveal why she behaves in that way and why she does it, and it'll just break your heart.
Yeah.
It's only 6 episodes? That bums me out.
I got to say one thing, and we'll let it go about the ladies, because when Christina showed up on the set, she was ready. And when she stepped in and did it, you could shoot that scene again, and she could pick it immediately. And everybody has a different way of going. Some people come in very prepared. Some people have to find it, use a few sets and things. A few shots. But she was amazing in that way and was different. And to see her do that was... It was uplifting in a funny kind of way. And then Polly, Polly, by the way, is tough. I mean, she would have done all of her own stunts if they'd have let her. I mean, she was ready to be, jump through a window, get set on fire, whatever it took. But she had this subtle creepiness that I think was just worked beautifully with Jimmy and their relationship, the way that comes, which it just seems like these two simple sociopaths. But you start finding this little weird moments that they have between themselves that are both sort of surprisingly charming and yet scary too.
Yeah, scary, sexy.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
Like
wait.
really scary, sexy. That, yeah, that thing where you look at someone like that, and you go, "Mommy."
Well, guys, the show premieres Wednesday night, right, on the Sundance Channel at 10 p.m., I believe.
March 2nd.
It is so good. I can't recommend it enough. I've watched 3 episodes, and I said I'm bummed that there's only 6, because I'd like to watch 12 or 22. It's fantastic.
The next 3, this dude. Awesome.
Jimmy, come back after the next 3. I'll have more questions for you. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you.